For the record, my name is Henry Santana, at-large City Councilor, and I am the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice. Today is September 23, 2025, and it is 2:08 p.m. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcasted on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Files Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.psps@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. If you are interested in testifying in person, please add your name to the sign-up sheet near the entrance of the chamber. If you are looking to testify virtually, please email our Central Staff Liaison, Cora Montrond, at cora.montrond@boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on docket number 0322, order for a hearing to discuss ways to ensure operations of the 911 system and contingency plan in case of a 911 system outage. This was sponsored by Councilors Ed Flynn and Councilors Aaron Murphy and was referred to the committee on January 29, 2025. Today, I am joined by my colleagues in order of arrival, Councilor Aaron Murphy and Councilor Ed Flynn and Councilor John Fitzgerald. We've also received a letter of absence from both Councilor Brian Morrell and Councilor Enrique Pepin. Before I introduce today's panelists, I would like to give my colleagues the opportunity for opening remarks, starting with Councilor Murphy. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. We are well represented by all of our first responders and those who support our call takers, so thank you for that. I'm just going to do a little background because we did file this hearing order in January, 9 months ago, for an incident that had happened a year and a half ago. So just to kind of catch us up to speed. Councilor Flynn and I filed this order to discuss ways to ensure that operations of the 911 system and any contingency plans that are needed for any 911 system outage. We know that back on June 18th in 2024, there was a statewide 911 system outage for about 2 hours, which was concerning for many people, and obviously all of our first responders, police, fire, EMS, needed to figure out how to make sure you were answering the calls that you show up every day to answer. Initial investigations indicated that the outage was due to a firewall malfunction, and that Massachusetts 911 system is based on the same technologies that could have this next generation 911 system go out again. So there were concerns then that we want to make sure that we have the top of the line equipment for all of our first responders. We need to ensure that the 911 system has redundancies in place so that any system-wide outage will not happen again, and that each department has a plan in place in case of issues with any 911 system. Since then, we've had, back in August, there was a police main radio went down for nearly 30 minutes. That was a concern. Again, what happens, right, when our officers can't communicate with each other, when the residents of the city can't call in to report, a crime or a medical issue that they need addressed for. And Councilor Flynn and I also wrote a letter to Commissioner Cox calling for an investigation into that failed system. And also in August, after doing a tour of at headquarters, thank you for bringing myself and my team around, and I know some of my other colleagues have toured it to see firsthand the hard work our 911 dispatchers do and our EMS side of the call takers, knowing that EMS we need an upgrade to that system to make sure that we can communicate effectively with the hospitals and when we're answering calls, and I know that we always, this body, not always, but make sure myself and others advocate when it comes to equipment that our fire department needs, that our police need, and that EMS, that if you're out there protecting us, that you have everything you need and support. So I'm hoping that this conversation with all of you experts here can help ease any concerns residents have or I have to make sure that if there is a need for any upgrade to any system, that we've already figured out how to make sure that we can answer any call that comes through. So thank you for being here and looking forward to you answering any questions we have.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the dedicated and professional city employees that are here for the important work you do every day across the city. Thank you to the Chair, Councilor Santana, for holding the hearing. Thank you to Councilor Murphy for really taking the lead on ensuring that residents know exactly what to do if there is a 911 outage and how we communicate. Critical public safety issues. Councilor Murphy talked about the 911 system that failed statewide, really, due to a firewall malfunction preventing residents from calling 911. When that happened, residents were told to call their local police and fire stations for emergencies or pull the nearest firebox to notify public safety agencies. I think it also is a good example of why we need these fire alarm on street corners in the city of Boston. They're not obsolete. They play a critical role in public safety. I've seen them, how effective they are in the 911 calls that come into EMS, Boston Police, and Boston Fire are handled professionally. It's not the time to downsize. It's also critical that we educate and inform residents of how to contact their public safety departments in case they can't dial 911 directly. I represent a large immigrant community. I also represent a large Spanish-speaking community, a large Cantonese-speaking community, and the largest number of residents live in public housing of any district councilor. I want to make sure that we educate everybody across the city, especially vulnerable populations, on how to effectively communicate if there is a system damage. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking forward to hearing from the testimony.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Fitzgerald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the panel, all our great folks, first responders, and all the work you do for our city. Happy to learn more about what occurred and what steps have been taken, I'm sure, since then to make sure it doesn't happen again, and look forward to the education. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. Again, I want to thank our panelists for being here. I'm now going to introduce today's panelists. So with us today, we have James Hooley, who is the Chief of Emergency Management Services, Chris Walsh, who's the Deputy Superintendent, Technology Services Division Commander with the Bureau of Administration and Technology with the Boston Police Department, Christopher Markunis, Director, Operations Division with E911 Boston Police Department, Christopher Burke, Deputy Chief of Boston Fire Department, Robert Barnes, Deputy Superintendent with EMS, and Jason Yuckins, who is the President of the EMS Union. So thank you for being here with us. If you all can, I'm going to turn the floor over to you all. If you all can just state your name and title for the record, and I'll turn it over to you all for a presentation or any remarks you may have. Just go ahead, start, Chief. Yep.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Councilor Santana, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I'm honored to represent dedicated members of Boston Emergency Medical Services. My name is Jim Hooley, and I'm the Chief of Boston EMS. Before I begin, I want to introduce my colleague, Deputy Superintendent Robert Barnes. He's one of our deputy superintendents. He's one of two that oversee dispatch operations. Tanya Devalle is the other one, and she's on a day off today. I'd like to start by giving a brief overview of Boston EMS and then our call-taking process. Our department is comprised of 440 EMTs and paramedics, supported by an additional 32 support service or non-uniform personnel. Each year, we respond to over 140,000 clinical incidents, transporting more than 93,000 patients. When a 911 call is placed in Boston, it's first received at a Public Safety Answering Point, or the PSAP, at Boston Police Department. The police call taker determines the primary nature of the emergency, whether it involves a request for police, fire, or EMS. If the call is determined to be an emergency medical call, it's transferred one button. They keep the caller on the line, one button, and it actually comes right up in the ear and the headphones of our EMT call taker at Boston EMS Dispatch. Our call takers are Boston EMS Academy trained EMTs, all who were certified to the same academy as our folks in the field. Many of them have worked many years in the field before they came up to dispatch as well. That EMT will then ask a series of standardized questions using established emergency medical dispatch guidelines to gather information that determines how the call is prioritized and provide pre-arrival instructions. Well, a dispatcher then dispatches one or more response units. The call is triaged and call prioritization is in place to ensure that the right resources get dispatched to the right location within the right time frame. The call type that is determined by our call taker, then also that triggers the response. So a call type, one call type might go to just stay with the EMS. It may be ALS and BLS, or it might involve us and fire, or us and the police, or it might involve all three agencies. But as soon as you select the call type, it appears on the dispatch screen of all three agencies. For higher acuity cases, such as priority 1 calls, the dispatcher may redirect units who are en route to a lower priority call, and similar to an emergency room where the more acute patient gets seen first. Requests for EMS can also come directly from our public safety partners, who may add us to an incident or transfer a call to us. For example, police from fire at some other incident, and they determine they need EMS. For any medical request, having the caller's information and callback number is essential, particularly if additional details are required regarding the patient or the location. The 911 call taking system, known as NextGen 911, is provided and managed by the Massachusetts State 911 Department. We're grateful to our partners at the BPD, who oversee and maintain the 911 system. Hardware at our dispatch operations, which is co-located at Boston Police dispatch operations on the same floor, just a glass wall and door separates us. The computer-aided dispatch system, also known as the CAD, is shared by Boston EMS, fire, and police, and maintained in coordination with each respective public safety service. And there's a joint management system to oversee that. A 911 backup center is located and operated at Boston Fire Alarm to ensure continuity of operations should dispatch operations be compromised at Schroeder. There are procedures in place in the event there is an interruption or an outage that impacts the 911 system. On June 18th, 2024, as Councilor Murphy pointed out, shortly after 1 p.m., the state's NextGen 911 system did experience such a statewide outage. There was no notice of it, no planned downtime or work. It was, truly an unannounced emergency. While 911 phone lines were impacted, Boston EMS dispatch procedures and central medical emergency dispatch remained fully operational. The following contingency actions were immediately taken by members of Boston EMS dispatch operations on that occasion. Notifications were made immediately to State 911, informing them that calls were not coming through. The broader healthcare system in Boston was notified, including the private ambulance partners, Central Medical Dispatch, CMed, and notice went out to the 61 cities and towns around Boston, for which we have responsibility for running the CMed region for that. And we wanted to make sure that everybody knew there was a problem beyond even Boston. Additional staff were assigned to assist with handling incoming calls and conducting callbacks via their workstation landlines as needed. We coordinated directly with the Boston Police Dispatch Operations, Boston Fire Alarm, and Boston Fire. CAD was also monitored to ensure that we captured any requests from EMS from our partners. As I say, if Boston Police or Fire came across something or were flagged down, all they had to do was radio back to their respective dispatcher for EMS, and that call would appear on our screen, and vice versa. If we noted something that we needed police or fire for, or if any of us got flagged down for anything. Members of the public were provided our main number for our dispatch operations, which is broadly disseminated through public messaging, along with instructions on how to reach police and fire. And I know that the fire department had contingency plans as well. Boston EMS personnel were advised of the outage, and all of our units currently working were directed to leave. Our folks are usually on the road. They're usually not sitting at stations, but they were directed to go out and be visible in their districts for public awareness. If they on-site in a medical emergency, they're advised to notify dispatch operations via radio with their location and type of call, so we could advise other departments. On average, we receive approximately 16 emergency medical calls per hour. During that 2-hour time frame on that date, we logged 33 EMS incidents. Following this event, the city and the state have taken multiple measures to mitigate this form of disruption, including reducing the risk of failure and establishing a 911 call-taking backup center, which is actually located in another state, where the calls can then be routed and then be sent back to us to a 10-digit phone lines that have been established at the call-taking terminals. I know at Boston Police Department and Boston EMS. 1 month after that 9/11 system outage, our CAD system was impacted by the CrowdStrike incident. In that case, 911 kept operating. It was the CAD system that was a total of about 7.5 hours before that could be put back up. In that time, 99 calls were manually captured on the older paper and card backup system by our call takers and relayed to our dispatchers, and seamlessly logged and updated, the status of our ambulances while continuing to dispatch calls. It went back to spreadsheets, grease board, that type of operation. But that was all later updated into the CAD to preserve our records. We would just call to our other agencies to let them know we had a call that required police and or fire assistance as well as the calls came in. I really want to commend our dispatch operations, our personnel, for skillfully responding to both of those incidents and quickly coming up with workarounds, ensuring that calls were processed. A lot of crew members stayed through shift change on that day. Some or came in to help bolster our operations on that as well. They were certainly dedicated. Although these incidents were unfortunate, the lessons learned from them have made us more resilient and really got us thinking a lot about such contingencies. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony here today.
Awesome, thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to provide any testimony or?
Sure. Thank you, Councilor Santana, Councilor Murphy, Councilor Flynn, and Councilor Fitzgerald. Appreciate it. Appreciate you hearing us. I'd first like to thank the women and men that work up in the Boston Police Operations Division. They work hard. It's a tireless job. They do a great job. They serve our city proud, answering calls from folks in their worst moment. Unfortunately, on June 18th, back in 2024, as Chief Hooley kind of explained here, the statewide 911 system did experience a catastrophic failure. That failure affected 911 across the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That system that we use in Boston and across the Commonwealth is owned and provided and maintained by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through their vendor, Comtech. During that failure, our staff in the Boston Police Operations Division, as well as EMS and Boston Fire Department over at the Fire Alarm Office as well, we're in constant contact with the State 911 Department, with Comtech, trying to get updates as to when this failure was going to be resolved. The failure, unfortunately, went on for about 2 hours. In that interim period, the Boston Police Operations Division took multiple steps to mitigate the failure and to ensure that citizens of Boston, as best as we could provide the emergency services that were needed. One of the things we did is, in partnership with the Boston Fire Department, we advertised through our media relations department to media outlets throughout the city that if somebody in Boston had a medical emergency, a fire emergency, or a police emergency, that in addition to dialing a 10-digit telephone number for a district station or a fire station, they could pull a fire alarm box. As Councilor Flynn alluded to, that is a crucial backup to the emergency communications system for the city of Boston. We're one of the few cities that maintains a municipal fire alarm system, and it just goes to show that some of the modern technology, when it does fail, the old technology is a great backup and is really bulletproof. In the interim, since the failure, the Boston Police Department has worked in conjunction with the State 911 Department and Comtech, who is the vendor for the state for the 911 system. The State 911 Department has contracted, as Chief Hooley said, with a third-party call center that is out of state, where in the event of a failure similar to the June 18, 2024 failure, any calls that cannot get into the state's 911 system would automatically reroute to the third-party call center. That third-party call center, they're trained 911 personnel. They're trained to triage the call, determine the location of the emergency, and then transfer that call back on a 10-digit non-emergency line that we would have either in Boston Police Operations, Boston EMS Operations, or over at Boston Fire Alarm, so that they could get that call back into the local municipality so that we could effect a response. Boston Police have, through their telecommunications division, overseen by Deputy Superintendent Walsh, has installed an alternative telephone call handling system in the operations division of the Boston Police Department, and also, I believe, over at Boston EMS in their emergency operations center as well at One Shorter Plaza. That alternative call handling system gives us the ability to receive those calls back from the third-party call center in the event of a total 911 system failure. That alternative call system is outside of the 911 system, so it would be unaffected by an outage in the actual 911 system. It's a totally separate network. And it was installed by the Boston Police Telecommunications Division, is in existence up in the Operations Division. Furthermore, the department has reviewed evacuation plans for the Operations Center, revisited plans for going over to Boston Fire Alarm, which is where our backup center is if we needed to evacuate for physical security reasons, go over to evacuate One Shorter Plaza. And we've come up with other plans for different failures of electronic systems. You know, unfortunately, in this new age with a lot of these electronic systems, sometimes some of these failures that happen, like firewall issues and things, we don't find out about them right away. It could be something that happens in another state that affects us here in Boston. And you know, having a fail-proof system like the fire alarm system, or having an alternative means like this alternative telephone system that we've installed is really helpful to add resiliency to the 911 response system in the city. So.
Thank you. I'll just add, so I'm Deputy Superintendent Christopher Walsh, Boston Police Department. I work under the Bureau of Administration and Technology in the Technology Services Division. So with that mouthful, basically I'm in charge of all technology for the department. We support every facet of technology, from the 911 center to the networking, the telecommunications, phones, radios, computers. In support of the 911 center during this event, it became clear to us that we needed an alternative method for our citizens to call the police department, the fire department, EMS. A decision was made that we needed to place phones into the operations division that the call takers could answer. We didn't have that technology currently in the operations center, so we had to make that happen by installing networking equipment, actual phones, the wiring, the cabling, and everything, all the infrastructure to make that happen. That took some time, that took some money, but we made that happen over the course of that year. It's currently in place. We're waiting on one more number to be set up by Verizon to ensure that the system works from end to end. And we're going to do that testing to be completed at the end of the month. With that testing done, that alternate call center would call that number. And when the call is transferred over to the PSAP, that number will be ringing on the call taker's desk. They can pick up the phone, answer the emergency call, and enter it into the CAD system. There would be no change to the citizens calling that number. They would just call 911 and they would get through. They would not see any difference. Could we publish that non-emergency number? Yes, we could if we had to. It's just another phone number. But the whole premise is that it would be seamless. No one would notice that we would be on the alternative system. So I thank you for your time and for listening to us today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Deputy Chief Chris Burke, Boston Fire Department, Fire Alarm Division. I oversee the Fire Alarm Division, operators, fire alarm construction, and fire alarm radio shop. I won't go into the outage. I think Chief Hooley, Chris Marcoon's done a great job about that. We took measures that day, obviously during the press conference that was given by public safety officials. We published the fire alarm number, 617-343-2880 is our direct line. As an option, the pole boxes, the fire boxes that you see on your street corner as an option, as a second option, and any local firehouse, police station as a third option. So those are the options that the fire department gave to Councilor Flynn's point and Chris Markounis, Chief Hooley. If you pull a firebox, we're coming. Doesn't matter, regardless. The signal will get into fire alarm, will get tapped out into fire alarm, and we will send apparatus to that location. So that's an extreme valuable tool that the Boston Fire Department has, and when things go down, that's still available to our citizens of Boston.
Robert Barnes, Boston EMS. Thank you, Councilors Murphy, Santana, Flynn, and Fitzgerald for the opportunity to be here today. It's an honor to represent the men and women of Boston EMS dispatch operations, particularly those who are working as we speak. Just want to speak in terms of the failure and the fireboxes. So we did send messaging out internally to our folks. We've instructed them to patrol their areas with their lights on for visibility. We also advised our own folks to refrain from calling our business line because we want to free up that line in case any emergency calls came in so that we could receive those calls and triage them. As far as the fireboxes, if a firebox was pulled, a call would be put into the CAD system. And that computer-aided dispatch system, that CAD system, is shared by all three agencies, and that's our interoperability. If a call came in through the CAD system, and they respond, they need an ambulance, then we would respond. If a call came in through a business line and it came over to EMS, we asked specifically for callback numbers so that we could call back and triage those calls while the ambulance was on the way. As our chief mentioned, we are co-located up in our Boston Police Headquarters with the Boston Police. And during the failure, we maintained constant phone contact with fire alarm as well as face-to-face communication.
Good afternoon, councilors. Thank you again for having me down here. I'll provide some insight regarding the EMS side, mainly in regards to the employee level. But first, I'd like to thank all of you for having this vital and important hearing today. Every time we come together, we take another step forward in improving pre-hospital care in Boston. Ultimately, it's about improving safety, quality of life for the people we serve, but also our first responders. Today's hearing on the 911 system is especially important because it highlights the major EMS issue that we're currently facing today. Right now, approximately only 20 states in the country recognize EMS as an essential service, and Massachusetts is not one of them. At the State House right now is Bill H. 4120, which was presented by Representative Davis, and it's our chance to change that. It's our chance to finally say that EMS is critical as police and fire when it comes to public safety. In essence, to allow more funds to be allocated and used quicker for better equipment, infrastructure updates, and overall investment in the field as we relate back to that July hearing that we had this year. This bill also will set up dedicated EMS funds to support ambulance services, first responders across the Commonwealth, funding ambulances, equipment, training, salaries, resources, and critical investments needed to make sure every community, even Boston and all the rural towns around us, everyone has access to strong emergency medical care from the time a 911 call is placed to transport to a hospital. Thus, we at the BBPA EMS Division urge the City Council to support and drive this bill into law by calling your colleagues at the State House, because it will avoid another June 18th, 2024 incident or something worse in the future. Here in Boston, we're the capital of the state, a city that is world-renowned for the best medical care in the entire nation. We should be setting the standard, especially at the 911 operations. Our residents, visitors, and employees deserve the very best, and our first responders should have the functional, critical tools, training, and support, because then our patients do better. When our dispatchers and call takers get clear, timely, accurate information, ambulances arrive faster. And in emergencies, when every second matters, being prepared isn't just important and appropriate, it is what actually saves lives. So we encourage the City Council to ask these difficult questions we have today. One of them is the redundancy system in place, that if the internet-based telephone system is taken offline for any reason, a natural disaster like we've seen in California, Hawaii, or a terrorist attack of any kind that disrupts cellular service, internet access, which all of our equipment relies on, it is not only for the patient and the families that suffer during those outages, but also our members who have to endure the feeling of guilt, stress, helplessness, and the lack of understanding. I thank you, City Council.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all for your testimonies. We're now going to move to councilors' questions, starting with Councilor Murphy. You have the floor.
Thank you.
Do about 7-8 minutes, my timing, and then
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your testimony. I'll start with the fireboxes. I actually live across from one. How many do we have across the city? And something Councilor Flynn and I filed recently, we hear it all the time at community meetings where residents ask the question of, when should we call 911? When should we call 311? And the answer is always call 911. If you're questioning it, they'll figure it out. They'll bump it down. If it's not an emergency, don't waste time worrying. So my second question about the fireboxes is, I'm pretty sure it's true, but for any emergency, it doesn't just have to be a fire, right? If systems are down or you don't have your cell phone on you and you've seen a car crash or something else, you can always pull the fireboxes, right? And they'll come to that location?
The answer is yes.
Yes, and how many are there across the city?
I'll have to get that number for you, Counselor. Sometimes some are out of service, some are knocked down, but I can get you that exact answer
Okay.
and send it to you.
No, that's good, thank you. I think sometimes it was said, people think it's like obsolete, like it's like an old payphone, and I always tell people, I'm like, no, it's up, it's running, it's working, they're definitely needed. You mentioned one of my questions was going to be what upgrades to the 911 side of the dispatch center were made. You talked about new phones being installed. How many numbers? You mentioned that we're waiting for one more number to be installed from Verizon. How many others had been installed since this incident?
Thank you, Counselor. So we have currently, there's going to be 2 numbers for the police department and 1 number for the EMS. But when it comes in, when that call comes in, it gets distributed across up to 20 phones that are going to be placed on the call takers' desks so they can answer that call.
Does that phone have call waiting, or is it a single line?
So when the calls come in, they'll be distributed. So multiple phone calls can be made on that single line.
And multiple phone calls can come in on that
Correct.
line? Okay.
Yes.
And is it true on the EMS side, is it 617-343-1400 is the line? Is that one of the phones on that side that hasn't been updated or needs to be updated?
That's our administrative phone line. What Deputy Walsh is referring to is the 10-digit emergency line that rings directly to an emergency call taker.
And do you have one of those lines on your side?
Yes, we do.
And does your main line need to be updated if people were to call that?
The main business line is in the process of being updated.
It is, okay. You described it as Chris, well, there's 3 Chris's here. This Chris, as a catastrophic failure, which I agree was. If you could just talk me through, it was kind of mentioned, like what systems went into place, and thank you for everyone. Obviously, everyone did heroic work that day and worked together, so thank you. And if it happens again, and like what happened that day, how did we keep it all together, and was there anything at the state level at EOPS that they were supporting us doing, and what have they done since then, if there's any changes they were making, because it seems like it came from above but affected us?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Counselor. On that day, we were in constant contact with State 911, who is under the, EOPS, the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. They were great partners in working with us, hearing our concerns, obviously, that we're hearing not from just Boston, but the entire Commonwealth about this failure. There were several State 911 board meeting hearings on this issue. They, in partnership with Comtech, the vendor for the state's 911 system, were able to, come up with this call center, the third-party contract with a third-party call center, so that we do have a workaround in the event something like this happens again. And I think it's critical that, that's in place, because we will now have the ability to get calls outside of the 911 system, which we did not have before in the police operations side. That's now in place. As Deputy Walsh said, they're testing one more telephone number currently on that, but that's really what gives us our redundancy and our resiliency in that area. As for the day of the failure, everybody worked well together as usual. I mean, I find in these incidents, when we have a large-scale incident in the city of Boston, when things get chaotic, everybody comes together, and we pull together as a team. Police, fire, and EMS, we all work well together. The call centers all worked well together. I was on the phone with Deputy Superintendent Barnes. I was on the phone with Boston Fire Alarm, and coordinating with them, getting the message out. Hey, with Fire Alarm, if you guys get a street box that is pulled during this outage, just let the police know, so we can also, normally on a street box on a normal day, we would not send a police car unless there was one available, but in this particular instance, any street box that got pulled, we're sending a police car. The Bureau of Field Services for the Boston Police Department, in addition, directed all districts across the city, similar to what Deputy Superintendent Barnes said occurred with the EMS units. Each district across the city deployed the police officers in strategic locations, high visibility locations throughout their districts, blue lights flashing so that they're visible, they're out and about. If a citizen had an emergency, there is police presence out on the street. All those steps were taken during the the events of June 18th. You know, and like I said, I think this alternative call handling system was a big step forward in you know, hopefully solving this issue.
And one union, I guess, question for each first responder department. Has there been enough professional training for any new system that's been initiated into either the dispatchers or for our police and fire when we've been upgrading these systems? Are we, because I know that would come through us on the council to make sure if we need to add any funding for professional training for our first responders.
Speaking on the EMS side of things, I think there's always room for improvement. I think more training is necessary. June 18th highlighted some flaws that we did have that hopefully will be fixed in the near future, as I was told by the chief in a recent meeting. But a lot of flaws that came from there is the administrative line that was given out, and that only one individual could answer that phone. There was no true capability to transfer or hold that because it was very, the equipment was out of date and it was very convoluted for someone to transfer the line. So we had one individual manning that phone, putting in all the information into the CAD system to be spread out to all the other agencies. So it did show some weaknesses, but I think we are on the right track, but we need more training and more funds allocated to its EMS.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. When we were first notified that there was a public outage, how quickly, when you were notified that there was an outage, how quickly was the public notified?
At least on the Boston Police side I can speak for, it was fairly quickly. We notified our media relations team from the operations division within minutes of the outage being discovered, let them know that what was occurring and that we were taking steps, you know, letting them know that they need to dial a 10-digit number to reach us instead of relying on 911.
Okay. Anyone else want to respond to that?
Okay. You know, I don't recall the exact number of minutes, Counselor, but I would say coincidentally that day we were, I think we had just concluded a meeting in the Eagle Room. I believe it was a cabinet meeting. It could have been something else, but Commissioner Cox, Commissioner Burke, and I were all in attendance, and it sort of started coming up when each of us were either getting messages from our respective departments, and each of us were kind of like, hey, do you hear anything about, you know, we all basically learned at the same time.
Okay.
And then the meeting quickly turned into, you know, chief of staff, mayors, each of us talking to our own folks, and then quickly they notified the media first, and they started pushing out things in the cities on BVDs. But thankfully that did go pretty quick.
Okay.
I could speak for my...
Yeah, Council, about the same time, about 13, 18 hours, 1:18, we started to notice that we were having problems. Until Chief Woolley's point, the superintendent was notified, myself, the mayor's office, the commissioner, the chiefs of operations, our PIO, our BFD, IT, Office of Emergency Management, and fire alarm sent out an extraordinary incident page that we had a state 911 outage to those individuals. So they knew right away that we were having problems.
No, thank you, and I'm glad we all brought it up initially, that especially for my colleagues that haven't been around all that long, but the fire alarm boxes that we have in the city play a critical role. And this was an example of the importance of the fire alarm boxes that we have in the city, that during challenging times that technology was there for the residents. So it's, in my opinion, it's never the time to cut that type of technology or or personnel that do exceptional work, and let this be a lesson for all of us here on the council that fire alarm boxes are an incredible part of public safety, emergency responses. I've known the people that work there for years and know the work they do, and they're exceptional. So I want to highlight fire alarm, and often underappreciated, but they play a critical role in our city. They're also our neighbors and contribute greatly to the residents of Boston. Let me ask one final question, and I mentioned it in my opening statement. How did we communicate with residents that did not speak English during this period of time? Was there anything unique about the way we communicated with, for example, people that speak Cantonese? As you know, I represent Chinatown. Most of my constituents speak Cantonese. I advocate often, all the time, for my constituents. But was there anything unique about when this system was down, how we communicated with residents in another language?
Yeah, thank you, Counselor. So we do have access, even on our administrative telephone lines, if we do get a call from a citizen that doesn't speak English as their primary language, to interpretation services, just like we would on the 911 system. We have that access through the city's language line program. I don't recall any particular incidents during that time frame that came in where there was a challenge or an issue at that particular time,
But that system, no, thank you for the answer, but that system, you would have to then work with the Language and Communication Access team,
yes.
Basically contracting it out to someone outside of City Hall that does speak
Yes, we would
Cantonese.
have to conference somebody in.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Anyone else have anything that unique about anything relating to the Cantonese speaking community? I know it's kind of a specific question, narrow question, but it is important to me.
Council, we also, I know on that date, the first part of your question, like how do we get out to reach the many languages spoken in Boston? We, on that day, as I recall, we were pretty dependent on the communications team here at City Hall, using some of their channels that they use, to whether they're putting out something of weather emergencies or pushing out things to Age Strong, putting out things to the senior community. Anyone who has language capabilities there, who are partners in that to help push that out. So I can't say for certain how many languages they were able to get out, and I'm sure Spanish, hopefully Cantonese was one of the languages covered when they were trying to reach out to their regular media. I don't know who else they push out things, say, for road closures or anything, but on that, I know we're pretty dependent on the when you're planning events, when you know whether it's vaccination or emergency infectious disease or something else, the Public Health Commission does have the ability to develop a lot of communication stuff that they can push out. The City of Boston does as well too. I'm not sure how quick it hit as many languages as we needed that day, but we typically rely on those agencies for that. So some of the things, and again, more on the receiving end, on the action end, we just like Chris was saying, we do up in dispatch have the language line available where we can quickly jump on if we have a caller and we're not even sure what the language is. We can do that. We did issue. We've issued 100 licenses for Duolingo to our department members who have committed that they want to learn or expand their proficiency in another language, just to give them a routine ability to do that. And all personnel who have, what is it here? Let me just look at it again. We allow personnel to establish a live video conference, if necessary, with a translator from the scene of an emergency on the tablets that we carry to do our electronic charts. We we purchased software to get live translation. So at 3 a.m., if we're looking for a translator as well, we can use that.
Yeah, Chief, for your 911 callers, do you have anyone that speaks Cantonese fluently that works there full-time?
We not full-time all the time. We have, I believe, 2 right now.
That speak fluently,
yeah.
Cantonese fluently?
Yeah, well, yeah.
How about the police and the fire?
We have one currently that speaks Cantonese, and then we have a pretty broad array of languages that are available to our staff on duty here in the operations division.
Okay. Fire?
No, Counsel, I don't believe we do.
Okay. And thank you. I do always try to highlight the importance of language and communication access as well. I do think it is important. It's important for us to work together. I do have concerns, though, when we have an emergency and then we have to go to the mayor's office and then we have to go to contract it out to someone that speaks Cantonese. As we all know, every second is important. I know a lot can get lost in that type of translation, interpretation as well. Well, let me just say this. If anyone does have an emergency and they need my office to be helpful, I do have someone that speaks Cantonese full-time that works with me, Cantonese fluently, and she would be glad to help in any way possible. So I just wanted to offer that. Melissa does a tremendous job for me, and there was a situation we had in Chinatown where she assisted the inspectional services department working with residents and businesses on a particular issue. So I do value the important work of language and communication access in our city. Mr. Chair, thank you for giving me an extra couple of minutes to go on. And again, thank you to the administration, dedicated city officials that are here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Fitzgerald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to be redundant with any questions. I think the previous questions have covered a lot, but I do think it's rather ironic that we're having this hearing today, given some of the news that happened in New York City in dismantling a large telecoms network that could take down cell phone service and things of exactly what we're talking about today. Very little of what we know just by reading up on that. Is that something that we are prepared to counteract in that way, or can our system, because it seems to me what they're looking at talking about is just they overflow the network with almost, like cell phone bots with just texts and calls, where it would then just basically black out a network to the point that no one would have service. Is that anything we can do on our end, or is that more of a telecoms making sure that they have the bandwidth to take on X amount of calls? Or, I don't know the answer. I'm just looking at you guys because we're talking about services going down today.
From a 911 perspective, I know that it's been an ongoing concern in the 911 community for some time. TDOS attacks, or telephone denial of service attacks, basically, like you said, Councilor Fitzgerald, a telephone bot or some sort of automated dialing device that overwhelms a network so that no legitimate traffic can get through. I know that Comtech, who is the state 911 vendor, has a network operations center that is 24/7, that is continuously monitoring the state's 911 system. And I've had contact with them before when we've had not a TDOS attack, but suspicious activity, whether it's a large calling event or something that looks like an anomaly in the data. And they're pretty robust, and they're pretty quick to take a look into it and in real time determine whether or not it's something nefarious or if it's something that's legitimate traffic. I know that they're always looking at that. as much as it's prepared for, it seems like the bad guys are always ahead of us, but it is something that I know from the 911 perspective, the state 911 department's continually monitoring along with Comtech, the vendor, and I mean, as far as internally, I know Deputy Walsh's folks, and he can speak for the ISG group, are always concerned with that for internal systems as well. It's always a concern. Security is always a concern.
Sure, as it should be.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for what you're doing in that. I will say during a campaign season, I know many people get flooded with campaign calls, and that can overtake a system enough, at least to piss people off enough, right? None of that's coming from mine. I'll just say that we're taking it easy this year. But yeah, no TDOS events coming from District 3. Don't worry about that. That's really the only questions I have. I think you all know what needs to be done on your end, have taken those steps since the incident have occurred. Deputy Director Markounis, as you said, sort of, the bad guys always seem to be one step ahead. I think that's just a good rule of thumb to follow regardless. And I know you guys are always vigilant in making sure that we're at our safest. So thank you again for all you guys do across all of the public safety sectors here represented. And thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. And again, thank you to our panelists for being here and answering our questions. I'm just going to see if we have any public testimony, but I do want to give an opportunity to the lead sponsors. Okay, so I've been informed that we do not have anyone for public testimony, so I'm going to turn the floor over to the lead sponsors for a few statements. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just want to thank you all for being here and representing our first responders so diligently and respectfully, and our call takers who just, show up every day for the residents of the city of Boston, and know that I'm here to support all of you as you support those who show up for our city. So thank you so much for answering our questions, and know that, whatever it is when it comes to, new phone lines and equipment that our city employees need to do their job, right? We have to make sure that we're giving everyone the tools to do their job effectively, and the residents are the ones who every day get the benefits from that, and thank you. I'll thank you from the residents also. When you show up, it matters, and making sure you can do that every day is important to me. So thank you for your answers and being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the first responders that are here with us for your testimony, but more importantly for the work you do in every neighborhood of Boston. I also want to say thank you to our call takers at Boston Fire, at Boston Police, at Boston EMS. I believe they are unsung heroes in the city of Boston, and want to acknowledge them publicly for their professionalism, hard work, commitment to the residents of Boston. We need to support them like they've been supporting the residents of Boston for so many years. Boston works best when we work together. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. And again, I just want to echo my colleagues' remarks. Thank all of our first responders. Thank again to this all-star lineup of a panel that we had today. I really appreciate all the work that you all do, and on behalf of our city and our residents. So without further ado, this hearing on docket number 0322 is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.